process should be expedited. Because as we speak, I know there are cases which are pending before the NLC. Cases which perhaps have come from elsewhere, or cases which they have initiated on their own volition. I know my friend Honorable Karoli Mundi is itching to speak to this. I'll be pleading that we give him time to say something after this, so that I get to know what is it that he has in mind about this particular matter. But from where I sit, Madam Speaker, from where I sit, I don't think we have got any other route to cure this problem. So I want to plead with you, our honorable colleague members, that let's expedite this bill. Let's just adopt it like yesterday and have it assented to, for us to go back to where we should have been from the very beginning. Allow the NLC to perform its functions. Otherwise, with those very many remarks, Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I also rise to support this bill by the Deputy Leader of Majority, who is also the very good member for Kilifi North, and my very good friend. Honorable Speaker, this bill, as the Leader of Minority has said, is quite progressive. And indeed, I want to agree with the Leader of Minority that in the first instance, the particular provisions in the law, as it were indeed unconstitutional, because you cannot limit what is expressly provided for in the Constitution through statute. And that is what I think Parliament had done, and I believe on hindsight now, because myself and the Leader of Minority were in that house in the 11th Parliament, was erroneous. And he said it's only fools that don't change their minds. And since we are not fools, as a house, we ought to change our minds and align the statutes to the Constitution. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, you know, there are many land issues in this country, and not just historical land injustices. And I know there are those who are in fear that these particular provisions may give the National Lands Commission the power to look into private land matters and all that. But what is of greater importance to me, Honorable Speaker, is the disposition of public land. And Honorable Speaker, it's good that you are sitting as a temporary speaker today, because you have been the chairperson of the Lands Committee in this house in the last Parliament. And you know the number of land parcels around the country that have been taken up by cartels, who are now taking advantage of the absence of these particular provisions in the law, that people can take up public land and subdivide it and corruptly process titles through the Ministry of Lands, and take up land that is otherwise public land. And there are many instances across the country, including in my own constituency, Honorable Speaker, where cartels have taken a chunk of over 100 acres of land that formerly belonged to the Kenya Forestry Service, subdivided it, and over the years have been trying to sell that particular piece of land to innocent third-party buyers. Honorable Speaker, you can imagine the tragedy that befalls people when you buy land that had title, that you went to the Ministry of Lands, searched that land, and found it to be a clean title, only to come to learn later that the particular people who sold the land to you initially ought not to have been legitimate owners of that land, Honorable Speaker. And it is only an independent commission that can fix some of these issues. The rot that has bedeviled the Lands Ministry over the years, Honorable Speaker, is not something that can be fixed by the ministry itself. They need a third eye, and that third eye is the National Lands Commission. And the drafters of our Constitution in 2010 had every reason not to trust the ministry alone, but to create another independent arm, an independent commission in the National Lands Commission, to oversight and see what is being done on matters pertaining especially to public land. And Honorable Speaker, I want to restrict myself to the issue of public land, because that is where the rubber meets the road on matters to do with the theft of land, Honorable Speaker. And by denying, when this Section 14 and Section 15 of the National Lands Commission became redundant or lapsed within the 5 years after commencement of the Act, Honorable Speaker, the National Lands Commission has been left as an impotent body. They will see today Kimani Ichung'wah grabbing public land. They know it is public land. Because I am in a position of influence, I will get my way through the Ministry of Lands, process titles of public land, subdivide that public land, and dispose it off. And the National Lands Commission will do absolutely nothing. Honorable Speaker, it is that we want to correct, and I must commend the member for Kilifi for having this bill done. Honorable Speaker, I had a similar amendment bill last year, which I had also done as a private member's bill. And the Ministry of Lands prevailed upon me to drop that particular amendment, that they would incorporate it in a bigger lands amendment bill that they were processing. And I was shocked when the bigger lands amendment bill came, these particular provisions were not provided for. And that is why today I stand to support the Honorable Owen Baya, because he is replicating exactly what I had done in my amendment bill that the Ministry of Lands refused to, or rather prevailed upon me to drop, on the pretext that they were going to bring it together with the bigger bill, which is also before the House. Honorable Speaker, and without preempting debate, Honorable Speaker, I think is a order listed as order number 12 or 13. Order number 13. But if you go through order number 13, you realize this section 14 and section 15 of the National Lands Commission Act were left out. And that is why I am obligated, because it was originally my bill, to support that, or the bill sponsored by my deputy, because it captures the spirit of what the country wants. The country desired to have a National Lands Commission that has teeth to bite, not a National Lands Commission that cannot act when the people of Kenya are being dispossessed of their land by cartels and thugs who will access power, thugs who will access the Ministry of Lands and corruptly change public land into private hands. Honorable Speaker, we can only depend on the National Lands Commission to correct some of these ills. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to support, and I want to ask the National Lands Commission, if and when the House adopts this bill and gives them back the powers that they ought to have, they must move with speed to ensure that all public land, and even in some instances, Honorable Speaker, private land. Honorable Speaker, I have a case in mind, Honorable Speaker, and you have seen it in the news, of some land next to Windsor in Kiambu County, or on the border of Kiambu and Nairobi. A small group of people change ownership of a company of very old men who bought land many, many years ago, decades ago. They corruptly change the ownership of the company, influence people at the lands office, change title, and transfer those titles to other people. And Honorable Speaker, let me say, because these are matters under investigation, I hear there is a senior police officer in Nairobi who purports to be having breakfast with the deputy president and dinner with the president, and forces police officers to guard stolen land. Let me tell that officer, whether you dine with the president, whether you have breakfast with the deputy president, whether you have lunch with the leader of majority, you shall have no opportunity to steal land from the people of Kenya on account of the office you hold, because you can commandeer officers with guns. This is the injustice, Honorable Speaker, that is being meted out on the people of Kenya over their land, because we do not have this provision in law where the National Lands Commission, those who feel treated unfairly, can run to and have titles revoked. Honorable Speaker, you'll be shocked, that particular case around Windsor, none other than the Principal Secretary in charge of lands cancelled the particular titles and instigated the cancellation of those titles. But because there were policemen and senior police officers involved, They now use their powers in the police to guard goons taking charge of a private land. You saw, Honorable Speaker, the other day, none other than the Minister of Lands herself, CS Alice Wahome, being locked out of her property in Loresho. Goons. Why? Because they are policemen who think that they are a power unto themselves. Honorable Speaker, because that particular officer knows himself, let me tell him from the floor of this House, there shall not be an inch of land grabbed in Nairobi or Nairobi's environs
majority
on
leader,
account of you claiming to dine and wine with who is who.
Sorry to interrupt.
Public land will remain public land.
Sorry to
What is
interrupt
private
you,
land will
Majority
remain
Leader.
as private
What is
land.
out of order?
I hope Honorable Opio doesn't have land that is grabbed.
Opio Wandai?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, you know for sure, Wandai and land grabbing can't be in one sentence, for sure. But having said that, what Honorable Leader of Majority is saying is very serious, extremely serious. Is it possible, Honorable Speaker, that you could perhaps persuade him or compel him to name this officer? Because I don't think this House can continue to operate in generalities. That officer needs to be named. And if it's not nameable, we need to know who is the force behind him. Because I don't think there can be an officer in the National Police Service who can have power or authority over and above that of the Leader of Majority.
What is out of order?
So
What
can
is
you
out of
compel
order,
him to name
Majority
that
Leader?
police officer who is guarding stolen property around Windsor Hotel? Thank you.
Majority Leader?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe just to quickly respond to the Leader of Minority. There are people who have more powers than me because I cannot command a police officer. But there are officers who have powers to command those officers serving below them. And that is what I'm speaking. And Honorable Speaker, if the Leader of Minority was keen to listen to what I said it is a matter under investigation, and I therefore do not want to jeopardize the investigations by naming people.
Majority Leader, I would like also to add that you did not state any name.
Yes, I did not state anybody's name.
State any name, so nothing
I
out
said
of order.
a senior police officer. And I will repeat, it is a senior police officer who has the capacity and ability to command other officers. That tells you it is from the rank of a sergeant, an officer commanding a police station, an OCPD, a county commander, a regional commander, a deputy IG, or an IG himself, but I did not name anybody, and I am not at liberty at this stage not to jeopardize investigations. But once the investigations are completed, I know the owners of that land are preparing a petition to this House. We shall name names, because this administration under William Ruto is not to condone the theft of public land by whoever you think you are, whether you are a police officer, whether you are a chief. Only yesterday, Honorable Speaker, I had to intervene in my constituency where an assistant chief had grabbed land belonging to 130 squatters and subdivided it among us 7 members, Honorable Speaker. And I must thank the area DCC for also quickly intervening to ensure that the people of Ruanyaga get back their rightful share. Honorable Speaker, I was saying once we restore these powers under Section 14 and 15 of the NLC Act back to NLC, NLC will also use this to safeguard a lot of public land in many counties, Honorable Speaker. And I'll give you the case example of Kiambaa constituency in Kiambu. You will not find a single piece, even half an acre of public land to do the affordable housing agenda. This is the opportunity that the government of Kenya has to actualize the affordable housing agenda by ensuring that we have public land that was grabbed being restored back to the public. Honorable Speaker, you have seen many people across the country crying foul when the national government moved to repossess land. The Ministry of Housing need not to be fighting with anybody. They will just be giving the issues of land that was grabbed, that was public land, to NLC. NLC will now have powers to revoke those titles and evict those who are occupying public land, and then we can develop the affordable housing projects on public land, Honorable Speaker. And that is the case in many of our urban centers, Honorable Speaker, not just in Nairobi, but in other areas. Honorable Speaker, before the leader of minority rose on a point of order, I was saying you saw in Loresho the other day, the minister for the CS for lands being stopped by a group of goons from accessing land where she was going to help somebody whose land also as a private citizen was being grabbed. Honorable Speaker, it is not by accident that all these things touch on the police and are happening in Nairobi. It is not by accident, Honorable Speaker. And that is why I have taken liberty to speak to it, Honorable Speaker, because I hear many other people are being threatened in Nairobi that you cannot talk about it. We shall talk about it here. And I have said that particular officer who is abusing his powers in Nairobi to grab land, your day is coming. Because they say in Kiswahili, Honorable Speaker, siku za mwizi ni 40. And that day is coming, the 40th day is coming. We as an institution must play our part, and as leaders we must all play a part in ensuring that we empower our institutions. And there is no better institution to empower other than an independent constitutional commission that was created by our constitution of 2010. And I want to agree with those who have argued, and I subscribe to that idea that the particular provisions, giving them a time frame of 5 years, was indeed unconstitutional. And on hindsight, it is only up to this House to correct that, Honorable Speaker. And I therefore support this bill and congratulate the member for Kilifi North, who is also the deputy leader of majority, for bringing this bill to the House and giving life to Section 14 and Section 15 of the NLC Act once more. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Thank you very much, Majority Leader. The Honorable Karoli Omondi, member for Suba South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this particular proposed amendment bill. Let me begin by acknowledging the great mischief that was perpetrated by whoever drafted Section 14 that we seek to now amend. If you read it in totality, at first you get the impression, when they say within 5 years, that there were noble intentions, which was to expedite the filing and the determination of any reviews regarding grants and disposition of public land. But when you go down, you realize it requires that such review and determination be completed for all grants and disposition, all, the word all, which basically means anything that was done probably from 1963 to 2010, which comes to 2015. So when you have a law that creates an impossible task to perform, you can clearly see the mischief. And I would like to support the proposal by Honorable Owen Bayer that we delete within 5 years in that particular section. But we should equally delete all and insert any, so that it becomes a continuous process. That, because you see, what I wanted to point out to minority leader at that time was that Section 14 deals with alienation of public land, but historical justices are under Section 15. So when you read it, you can clearly see there was very serious mischief that was created. So at the appropriate time, I'll be moving an amendment so that we delete the word all grants and dispositions and put any. Secondly, let me point out that because if we don't do that, what this particular limitation of 5 years meant was that after 5 years, after 2015, you could not review any grant or disposition. They were shielding whoever will be dealing with alienation or disposition of public land after that 5-year period. Secondly, if you go to Section 5, where they say the Commission finds that the title was acquired in unlawful manner, the Commission shall direct the registrar to revoke the title. That is a correct procedure, because unlawful allocation is where public land that was not available for alienation has been given out, and that has been very common. But what is unlawful is not defined. Yeah, and again, I think we will need to create some definition for that. Because when you go down to subsection 6, irregularly acquired is defined, but certain elements are missing, which are critical to what this particular act needs to address. Irregularly acquired is where the land is available for allocation, but the correct procedure was never followed. And again, in that case, the drafters were very clever. They are saying where there is irregular allocation, they will not recommend revocation, but they will recommend rectification. You'll be given a chance to remedy the wrong. What they are not saying is that where the irregularity was tainted with fraud, where it was deliberately fraudulent, yes, you will become a beneficiary of your fraud. So again, we need to look at the definition, because irregular allocation is defined in the Act. We need to look at that and distinguish it where there's honest mistake or honest irregularity from where there's deliberate fraud. In which case, if that is established, then revocation should follow, because you cannot benefit from illegal activity. If you go down to subsection 7, no revocation of the title shall be effected against a bona fide purchaser for value without notice of defect in the title. The lawyers in the House will tell you that there's a principle in law known in Latin as nemo dat quod non habet. You cannot give that which does not belong to you. You cannot pass a better title than the one you have. So if it is established your title was fraudulent, then the third party purchaser equally cannot get a better title. But there are exceptions, and this is one of them. And it is a good exception, where an innocent purchaser has bought a property without having defect in the title. But what they don't tell you, again, is that the original beneficiary, the person who committed the fraud, yeah, if not compelled to undertake restitution, then he becomes a beneficiary of his own fraud. In other words, there will be cases of unjust enrichment and where people will benefit from illegal activities. So again, we will be proposing an amendment that in case of irregular allocation or unlawful allocation, the person who committed the fraud will be required to make restitution either to the state or to the person who paid them. Because where there's a revocation, they should make restitution to the person who paid them. Where there is just restitution, they should be required to pay the value of the property or whatever they received, whichever is higher. And I would like to, again, just to go further to now historical injustices. That is section 17, subsection 3D, the one that my minority leader was very passionate about. Again, they imposed a 5-year limit here for historical injustices. And to handle a matter of historical injustice, I mean, if you want to look for historical documents and to show you are displaced, your community lived there, it takes time. Some of these documents are not even within the Republic of Kenya. They're in the archives in England. So it was again a mischief. I think I support the deletion of this particular clause so that issues of historical injustice, issues of review of grants or dispositions of public land are continuous and permanent power vested in the National Land Commission. But I want to point out, as we undertake all these things, we need to be very careful because there's very serious potential to disrupt the good commercial order of society when you deal with issues of land. You can see the case of Zimbabwe, where a food basket has become a basket case by, again, issues of land. And there are also very serious complications. When you're dealing with historical issues in Africa, you need to remember, like in the case of Kenya, the first formal registration of land was in 1905. And this particular law talks of 1895. So where do you start? And where do you get the materials? Yeah, and the communal land ownership in Kenya was very fluid. There were no common boundaries. We used to have what was called usufructuary rights. You used land, then you moved on when you got tired of it. And to make matters even worse, the coastal strip had a different legal system. We had the Sultan of Oman exercising domain at the coast and establishing land. That's why we have Mazrui Land Act and all those other issues. So I would ask that as we support we have an open mind and we make those amendments as I've suggested. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Well, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, are you on a point of order? Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I just want to rise on standing order number 1. I don't have my standing orders, but this is something that can be within your discretion. That, Madam Speaker, we are proceeding in this House like everything is normal, and we are hearing rumors of an air crash involving the CDF, Francis Ogolla, and 5 others. Madam Speaker, that is something of national interest and serious national concern. Our Majority Leader is here. I think it would be good if he can allay our fears, or if it is true, so that we can deal with this. And I think it would be appropriate for us as a House not to proceed with the Land Commission bill when we're having such a serious national or issue of national interest. Can he confirm whether the issue of the crash is true or whether it's merely a rumor? This is a very serious issue, Madam Speaker. Can we please be updated? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I hear what the Honorable Millie says. All that I can confirm, Honorable Speaker, is that it's indeed true that there has been a crash of a KDF helicopter, which we have seen in the news, and being responsible leaders also, we do not want to speculate as to the cause of the crash. We are all awaiting news. It is being reported in the news that a number of people have lost their lives, and there are a few who have survived. I think it's only fair that we leave it to the defense forces and the military to be able, because they're already on the ground, to confirm how many people have lost their lives, how many have survived, and once they identify the identity of those who are there, to maybe first communicate to their kin before the news is broken in any other manner. I think that's the most responsible thing to do. And let me take this opportunity to just convey my condolences to the families of those who may have lost loved ones in that crash, and say it is unfortunate that had to happen, I'm told, somewhere in Elgeyo Marakwet. And I would beg, Honorable Speaker, that we leave it at that, so that we do not get into speculation, since we do not know which officers were in that flight. We do not know who has survived, who has passed on, so that we allow the relevant authorities to do what they need to do. First, communicate to the families of the ones who may have lost their lives, and the country will be updated by the relevant authorities at the right time, Honorable Speaker. I would really beg that we leave that matter at that for now.
Honorable members, I see 2 interventions, but I will suggest that I will not entertain the points of order. I suggest, honorable members, that we proceed as per what has been stated by the Majority Leader, taking into account the sensitivity of the matter that has been raised by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Honorable members, I would like to state that we proceed as per the direction which has been given by the Majority Leader. Honorable members, I'm avoiding us getting into discussion on a matter in this House that is not very clear to us. So, members, I would like to request. Honorable members, I'll give an opportunity to the Honorable Peter Kihungi, member for Kangema. Are you in the House?
I use this one. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I start to support the bill by Honorable Bayer. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I think one thing I can say is that the limitation that was put on the Act, on the last commission, on the timeline on when the historical injustices or cases to do with lands can be handled, Madam Speaker, could have affected a lot of some of the things that are very important and some of the land injustices that needed to be sorted. Madam Speaker, as per now, most of the lands, mostly at the counties, has been grabbed.